Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. The Duffers have been doing interviews recently explaining alternate storylines for the Stranger Things ending, endings for the characters, clarifying plot holes, and the major questions they did not address or answer in the actual finale. There were many of them. It was kind of like Swiss cheese. There were a lot of things that they said that they either didn't care about or imply they didn't care about or just didn't have time for or budget for to answer. To their credit, they did try to give some definitive answers to the big plot points. Usually when showrunners don't want to talk about something, they'll give the David Lynch answer, while they just absolutely refuse to address people's questions. They also revealed what's going on with the live-action spinoff that they teased in one of the big scenes in the finale, so we'll break that all down. Some of the answers they gave were pretty hilarious. Like, you can definitely tell there were some things they just absolutely did not care about and didn't even think of in the room. Like, what? What are you talking about? So I will try to point those out specifically in the other questions that they did answer in more satisfying ways. For some of the details, they did kind of throw their hands up in the air and say, you can decide what you want, anything could be true. Starting with one of the biggest changes, originally Will would have been successful in helping to get Henry Creel rebel against the Mind Flayer in their final battle, and they would have given him his Anakin Skywalker Return of the Jedi moment where Darth Vader helps by killing the Emperor or trying to kill him because somehow Palpatine returned. Vecna was always going to die, Henry Creel was always going to die, but in the alternate version, he would have died a hero. Not necessarily a redemption, because he did way too many bad things, killed way too many younglings to make more Star Wars comps, way too many people, tortured everyone this whole time. The whole reason why they made Vecna stay loyal to the Mind Flayer to the end is because they didn't really have room for a whole redemption arc in the 2-hour finale or across the entire of Season 5. If you really think about it, the actual epilogue, when they went full Return of the King, Lord of the Rings style, went 30 minutes in the episode, so they really only had about 90 minutes to actually wrap everything up in the finale itself. Doing an entire redemption arc for Henry Creel would have also required them to spoil more of the Stranger Things for Shadow's stage play, or Netflix putting it on the platform so everyone could see it. That was probably one of the biggest criticisms of the finale. Most people who were watching the series never got the chance to watch the stage play, and so much critical backstory that was canon to the series was revealed in that stage play. On top of that, when the Duffers were clarifying this after the actual finale aired, they got really weird when talking about the stage play and said that even though it's done basically, like the stage play itself is basically done, they still didn't want to trample on the story in it or give away the big reveals about Henry Creel's backstory, Project Rainbow, the younger adult characters, Joyce's play, Patty Newby, all that stuff. Maybe because Netflix is going to eventually release that on the platform and they didn't want to spoil that before they actually put it on the platform, but it is important backstory for the characters.
This isn't the end. This is just the beginning.
Which is also why you never actually see Joyce or Hopper acknowledge that they went to school with Vecna, even when Joyce is killing him, hacking away with her axe, because the axe itself is a callback to something that happens during the play with an axe that she has, and in the stage play, she puts on a play that Henry Creel is part of, but in the moment here, even though it's meant to close this arc, she never actually references that moment in the stage play when she was younger. All the Duffers said about this was that Joyce and Hopper probably talked about it off screen, which is code for we didn't really think about it in the room and it never really came up when we were actually writing the finale. They were way too focused on speed running through the major details like the actual final battle, killing off Vecna, and then having their epilogue and characters all going their separate ways. This is the reason for a lot of these, what you would call either plot holes or just moments in the story that they didn't bother to spend time on during the actual finale. Like, we don't have time for that, just move on. This is also the reason why there are a lot more important side characters that either disappeared during the epilogue or were left out entirely from the episode or Season 5 just in general. Really good example of this is Max's mother. What happened to Max's mom in Season 5? She never appears anywhere in Season 5. The actual actress who played Max's mother in earlier seasons was also complaining about the finale on social media, leading me to believe that the Duffers never bothered to bring her back for Season 5 at all, like they just didn't care about addressing it. So this is why in the finale, nobody ever tells Max's mom that she came out of the coma, you don't see her with Max ever, and you don't see her mother at the graduation, which is where you would normally expect all the characters that you haven't seen in forever to come back, like, oh yay, everybody's graduating. This is also why Vicky also mysteriously disappears during the epilogue as well, too. The Duffers said that they never thought about what happens to her and Robin's relationship. You, as a fan, can decide whether they broke up or stayed together. The Duffers do not care. I actually thought that was pretty funny. The Duffers basically telling you that they didn't care about what happened to a couple of the characters. Like, just decide what you want. Anything that you want can happen. Speaking of really WTF missing characters, the Duffers also confirmed that all the pregnant women inside Dr. K's lab in the Upside Down all died in the explosion. R.I.P. Press F to pay respects to all of them. They clarified the whole purpose of the 12 kids, why 12 people in Brenner's program, why 12 kids Vecna and the Mind Flayer wanted, and not 20 kids or 10 kids. Why was it 12 specifically? And the Duffers revealed that it was totally random. It had nothing to do with the metaphor of the 12 hands on the clock or any kind of greater celestial meaning. Only that Vecna stopped at 12 because he felt like he liked the extra power that he got from 12, and 12 felt like enough. But according to the Duffers, the reason why Vecna took 12 had nothing to do with why Brenner wanted 12 successful people in his program with Vecna's blood. So there was meant to be no connection with Brenner's original program. This to me just reads like the Duffers, when they were in the room actually writing the finale, just picked the number 12 because they liked the number 12. Some of their answers about the live-action spinoff were a little more satisfactory, though. They said the live-action spinoff will follow totally new characters outside of Hawkins, and it sounds like it'll be more of an X-Files type of show, getting back to basics, more of the vibe that they had during Season 1 of Stranger Things, which most people point to as the strongest season of Stranger Things. And the really big moment in the finale that was teasing it was the glowing rock in Henry Creel's briefcase. It has nothing to do with Hopper's mention of going to Montauk with Joyce. That was just meant to be an Easter egg for the original Stranger Things pitch that the Duffers gave to Netflix. There were real mind control experiments, X-Files things going on in Montauk in the real world that then inspired the Stranger Things story. In the actual episode, the glowing rock contained a piece of the Mind Flayer's body in consciousness. That's why it jumps from the rock into Henry Creel's body, and they become this combined fuse entity across all the seasons. The scientists got the rock from Brenner's group, Project Rainbow, which was the military's experiment in teleportation across time and space. They get into this during the stage play. That's where the exotic matter came from. Brenner's group made it. They were able to touch the abyss dimension briefly, small window. The rock passed through dimensions, but the Mind Flayer itself couldn't send its entire body. They didn't really get into the Mind Flayer beyond this idea. We will see if the live-action spinoff reveals that somehow Palpatine returned, the Mind Flayer lived, or if it just continues with the idea that more weird things pass through dimensions because of Brenner's experiments with Project Rainbow and wound up on Earth, and that leads to more X-Files types of adventures week to week. Probably one of the next biggest things is obviously what happened to Eleven. The Duffers said that they had always planned to have Eleven leave the group at the end. She was never supposed to be hanging out with them in the epilogue at graduation or having fun with them. There are a couple interesting things that they said too. They confirmed she never contacted Mike to let him know what she was doing, and weirdly also the Duffers confirmed she could not have used her powers during the scene at the gate, but they also confirmed that she could not have made it all the way from the truck to the gate that fast. So the only logical conclusion there is that she was an illusion when she was at the gate. It would have had to have been Kali, because Eleven was really in the back of the truck when it passed through the gate. Mike was able to physically touch her. If she were an illusion when she passed through the gate, Mike would not have been able to touch her and vice versa. So any illusions that were cast would have had to have been Kali after she passed through the gate, after Eleven passed through the gate. The exotic matter didn't actually blow up till after they were through the gate. So if you think about the timeline of how the finale goes down here, obviously the Duffers were playing it really fast and loose when it came to the sequence of events and how the timeline plays out during this moment. The exotic matter didn't actually blow up till after they were through the gate, and it doesn't flatten the Hawkins lab right away. So yes, Kali could have survived long enough to cast a final illusion to help Eleven before everything collapsed.
Sister cast one final spell.
Next big question is, why would Kali have faked her death for Hopper in the room if this was the case? I think it's part of the larger idea that Kali told Eleven earlier that everyone needed to think that both of them were dead in order for the cycle to stop, and the military would abandon any more attempts to restart the program. They couldn't have potentially tortured Hopper or anybody else to find out that they were still alive, or 1 or 11 were still alive. The whole thing hinges on everybody believing that Eleven actually did die. Not that she actually died, only that they believe that she died. Kali also wanted them to believe that she had died too, so she would have wanted Hopper to leave this room thinking that she was dead. Also remember that the Duffers confirmed that Mike's story about the conversation at the bridge in Eleven's mind space never actually happened. He made that part up for sure. but the Duffers would not say whether or not 11 escaped or actually died. That's the part that they refused to answer, so you could definitely argue either way, like she died or she survived. But the actual final scene of her with the 3 waterfalls was filmed in real life in Iceland. They actually took a crew there, like they spent millions of dollars to go to Iceland to film this scene. There are 3 waterfalls. You just can't see the third one very clearly. It was meant to pay off Mike's story from Volume 2 about the land with 3 waterfalls that they were going to go to after this. The actual scene was one of, if not the last thing that they filmed for the finale, making it sound like it was a relative last-minute addition. So I think Netflix made them add this scene of 11 at the town because they wanted to have an excuse. Netflix wanted to have an excuse to bring 11 back in the future. If they wanted her for more spin-offs, they had enough money to back up a dump truck for her to get her to come back for sequels, other Stranger Things related projects in the next 10 to 20 years. Millie Bobby Brown said that she was actually one of the first people to learn 11's fate pretty early on, so they always planned to have her leave the group, but they didn't always plan to have this scene in Iceland. I think part of the idea in the original version of the episode is that Mike hears the feedback in graduation and realizes that she couldn't have used her powers to get back to the gate in time, then connects the dots on how it was Callie's illusion faking this moment, and that's the real reason the Duffers brought Callie back for the finale, because originally Callie was part of a failed spin-off attempt during season 2. Nobody ever explained, like the Duffers, Sean Levy never explained why they didn't end up doing the Callie spin-off. But this is why they waited to the absolute finale to bring her back. Like, we're going to wait to the very end of the story to bring this character back that we didn't really care about early on because she was just part of this failed spinoff. And originally, there was no waterfall scene in Iceland. They just ended 11's story with the feedback and the speakers, and it was just left to make you wonder whether or not she really was alive. It was much more ambiguous. Netflix was probably like, no, we want another scene of her to show that she might really still be alive. There were a lot of moments during the finale that were either much longer or added later in the process. So like the scene of the older kids talking about working on Jonathan's new movie in Philadelphia originally went on for way longer. They said they originally used the Polar Express book for Holly's storyline instead of the Wrinkle in Time book. In Mr. What's-It, Vecna would have told the kids he was taking them to the North Pole as a way to pay off the Abyss dimension in the configuration space. Like when you look at it on screen, the way they visualize it, it looked like it existed far above the Earth. Then they changed it when they realized that the Polar Express book skewed way too young for the kids that they wanted to use, the actual ages of the kids they wanted. And the reason why Holly Wheeler felt like she became the actual main character of Stranger Things for most of Season 5, that was a big joke for Volumes 1 and Volume 2, like, oh, Holly Wheeler is now the main character of Stranger Things, was all because the Duffers wanted to sort of reset the creative back to more of a Season 1 kind of vibe with Vecna, the Mind Flayer, against a bunch of little kids, and they wanted the imagery of Vecna taking all these little kids, taking advantage of them, and the original kids on the show had aged up way too much since the events of Season 1. Like, the original kids group is now more like the original older kids group because they're graduate, like they're the older kids now. You could see this phenomenon with pretty much all the major storylines in Season 5, from Season 4 to Season 5, like rewatch the Season 4 ending, then rewatch Season 5. So much of Season 5 feels like the Duffers trying to reset the show creatively back to what it felt like during Season 1, with a bunch of little kids going to school. No, we don't deal with the cracks. Don't ask about the cracks. The cracks are still there after the epilogue, too. The fact that they actually stopped the planets from colliding did not heal the cracks.
Phenomenon now covered up by a giant metal band-aid.
Will's tunnels across the entire underground of Hawkins are also still there, so the Hawkins town is kind of like Swiss cheese still. When they were asked what happened to the military during the epilogue, why don't we ever see Dr. K or the other military characters that are still alive, what happens to them? They basically threw their hands up in the air and said that, we didn't really think about it, we didn't have time for it in the finale, so it didn't come up in the room. According to the Duffers, their assumption is that at some point they probably just packed up and left. The whole bit with Holly Wheeler's Dungeons & Dragons group, which now includes Derek, taking the mantle at the end, Mike passing the torch to them, and it becoming their game, was also a later addition to the episode once they decided to recast the Holly Wheeler actress and make her such a big part of Season 5. Originally, the episode would have just ended with Mike walking up the steps and turning off the light in the basement as a metaphor for all of the kids growing up and putting away their childhoods. Like, this part of our life is over, now time to move forward. When it actually comes to the big final battle, the Duffers admitted to basically forgetting about the Demogorgons and other creatures on the Abyss. They actually said that they wanted the kids to be fighting the Mind Flayer and Vecna, and that was it. My assumption is this is mostly a budgetary thing, and they didn't want to spend Avengers Endgame level money, because if they'd included all the Demogorgons, the Demobats, all the creatures from the series fighting in the battle, it would have looked more like the final battle in Avengers Endgame. Netflix probably told them, no way, we've already spent way too much money on this, and it would have taken them longer to finish the episode, and the Duffer said that they were working on the actual final episode to like the week before it aired. This is also probably the same reason why they never paid off Will's painting of the three-headed dragon. They decided that they wanted the spider imagery for the Mind Flayer's body when they were making season 4, and that's why young Henry Creel gets so obsessed with spiders. They didn't have the extra budget in the final battle to have the Mind Flayer's body also morph into the form of the three-headed dragon during the battle and fly around, because you did actually see some imagery of dragons inside the body of the Mind Flayer when the kids were all strung up in all the goo. This is also why most of the moments that got deleted or removed did get removed, because they either had to speedrun the finale, they didn't have budget or time for it. So a lot of stuff either got cut out during the script phase, or just scenes went on longer and they just cut them way down for the final episode when they were editing everything. This is also the reason why Max missed almost 2 years worth of school and still managed to graduate, and she was back to 100% so quickly in the epilogue, even though only 18 months had gone by and she probably would have still been in physical therapy for that period. For those of you asking, I believe they were also originally going to spend way more time on Henry Creel's backstory and show more of his past, more Patty Newby. The actress who plays her in the stage play also said she was supposed to be more involved with season 5, but we never actually saw that on screen. They probably decided at a certain point that it just became too much and they didn't have time for it, and they would just leave it to the stage play. Like, eventually the stage play will be put on Netflix and people will be able to watch that. So if you want to see more of Henry Creel's backstory, just watch the stage play when it's available, or wink wink if you can find another way to watch it. A couple of the really big moments that I saw people asking about: who opened Will's door in season 1, episode 1? The Duffers actually talked about this a little while ago. They said it was basically Vecna exerting limited control that he has between dimensions, like during season 3 when he was killing people across dimensions without actually having to physically touch them. I think the reality, though, is that when they were actually filming season 1, they didn't have an answer for it when they actually filmed the scene, and then they just forgot about it later. They just didn't care about revisiting the moment later. If it wasn't clear, there's some people that were confused by this. Vecna was not a character on the show in season 1. They retconned him in with brand new footage. So like all the scenes that you see from season 1 that happened during season 5 is brand new footage that they shot with actors and then made it look like it happened during season 1 to make it seem like Vecna had been doing this whole time. But in reality, I don't think they actually came up with the idea to use the Vecna character till when they were working on season 3, when they were heading into season 4. Like they knew that he was going to be a villain during season 4.
That connection with Mills.
When that happened, they had to add a lot of new material and backstory to sort of retcon him into the series to make it seem like he'd been here doing this whole time. This is also a similar answer for our next big question: why 11 recognized Will in season 1, but they never met on screen and they never addressed it ever again, and the characters never really spend any time together on the series just in general. The Duffers basically forgot about it after season 1 and never cared to revisit the idea or pay it off later. Like, who cares about it? When it comes to the 12 children, like Holly Wheeler's group, they don't have powers after this either, and the reason why 11 still has powers but Will does not is because Will's powers were leached from Vecna and depended on him still being alive. 11 has Vecna and the Mind Flayer's, technically, DNA. You can't turn that off. Everybody's powers on the show come from the Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer gave powers to Henry Creel. His DNA was fundamentally changed, like they became a fused entity. Then Brenner took his blood, his DNA, and basically passed that on to the kids in his program. And the whole reason why Will doesn't die when Vecna and the Mind Flayer die, because he's so directly connected to them, is also because the Duffers did not want to kill Will off. Like they wanted to have this epilogue moment with him at the bar, like just having this happy life. They didn't really have a good answer for why their deaths do not affect Will more. They just kind of threw their hands up in the air, which is the way they answered a lot of questions and details about the finale. Like, we just wanted to get through it and speedrun everything. Some of the answers you can come up with on your own, and some of the answers they said they basically just didn't have time to address or didn't care to address. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and if there are any big plot holes or questions that didn't get answered during the finale or during the series in general, or things that didn't get wrapped up that I didn't address in the video, just write them below in the comments and I'll try to address them in the comments below. We could probably do a 2-hour long video just about all the stuff that got left out of the finale or things that never fully paid off on the series. Yes, the Duffers are leaving Netflix to go to Paramount to do movies, but Netflix is still going to continue with the Stranger Things IP. They're still doing the spin-offs. There's going to be an animated Stranger Things season that's going to take place between earlier seasons that will air later during 2026, so we'll just see more of that over the next couple of years. My assumption is that the live-action spin-off won't premiere till 2027 at least. What I will probably do is at least one video for the animated spinoff, and then I'll do a live-action spinoff series video when they release a trailer for that eventually. But if you do have any special requests, just let me know in the comments. Everybody click here and here for all my other Stranger Things finale videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.